Enterprise Management 360, your main source for tech news, analysis, podcasts, and videos for the enterprise.
Hello and welcome to this EM360 podcast with our Ask the Expert series, a weekly conversation with people who are impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Max Curtin, Editor-in-Chief here at EM360 and your host on today's podcast. Now, in today's episode, I'm being joined by Mike Wood, who is the CMO at Versa Network. So Mike, welcome to the show and thanks for coming on today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Max.
You're very welcome, and I'm looking forward to diving into today's topic. But before we get there, would you mind just giving our listeners a little background on yourself?
Absolutely. I've been in the networking industry for several decades, both in design and architecture and product management, along with leading strategy and messaging, positioning, and go-to-market plans for multiple industries and companies. And here at Versa, I'm responsible for leading our awareness and demand generation and several other interactions.
Excellent stuff. So you have the experience I need for today's topic. That's always a good start. So we wanted to invite Mike on today because he's joining us to lend his expertise on really how companies can assess whether their network architecture is SASE ready. And let's kick off with that then. Could you firstly give us an overview of what exactly SASE is?
Absolutely, Max. So SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge, as it's called, is really a category. And it was a category that was created by Gartner, who was an industry analyst firm, really originally as part of an August 2019 research report that they had put out called The Future of Network Security is in the Cloud. This is really where the concept all began. And when you look at SASE, there really aren't any new individual features or even really new concepts with SASE, although the term SASE, is new. The Gartner definition of SASE describes this idea of delivering networking and network security from both the cloud along with on-premises. Gartner actually refers to this model as a heavy cloud and a thin branch, or a heavy branch and a thin cloud. And that SASE framework, if you will, provides sort of the contextual security based on the user, the role of that user, the device that user might be on, the application that user might be accessing, the location even, Max, that the user is accessing applications from, and of course the security posture of the device and the content as a cloud service. And so SASE really ends up solving the pain of giving sort of that seamless user access to everything that a particular user might be authorized to use or access from anywhere around the globe. And so those are some of the key attributes of what SASE is and what SASE does, Max.
Perfect. I think that's the best way to describe it and how beneficial that can be for organizations. And I wanted to kind of bring everyone's attention to, obviously, this whole SASE transformation. It's really intensifying and picking up a lot of steam over the past couple of months or years, or however you want to look at the adoption growth of this. So could you tell us a little bit more about why that is?
Yeah, some of a couple of major drivers for SASE are, if you think about it, SASE is both a cloud delivered model, but an on-premise delivered model in addition to that. And what we've been seeing is that enterprises, businesses, organizations are now really beginning to adopt and deploy digital initiatives and digital transformation. And this is one of the big drivers that's really creating this environment for SASE. And that digital initiatives and those digital transformation activities are really built on, or they really necessitate implementing services, applications, compute, infrastructure, resources in the cloud. And we're seeing, we've all seen this sort of migration to the cloud. Because of this, there's now an increasing demand for these companies and these organizations to enable networking and security via the cloud also. So it's really all about bringing security and bringing networking and bringing these services to where the applications and capabilities are being delivered as part of digital transformation. So that's one big driver. The other one, Max, is really this idea that businesses and organizations have a much larger group of employees and contractors who are working remotely. They're working from their homes. In fact, they're working from just about anywhere, in the world other than the traditional office. And so this is another big factor, a large driver in the adoption, and I would say the intensity in terms of acceleration of the use of SASE. And that idea of the remote worker, where in the past, businesses and IT have really planned for a fraction of their employees and contractors to be working from home a fraction of the time. Now, in many cases, 100% of their employees are working remotely. And this really requires that IT enable those digital initiatives and cloud access for all of these users, while doing so in a very simple, secure, and highly reliable way if they're going to ensure this business continuity. And that's been a big theme, especially during this pandemic, is which businesses are able to actually maintain business continuity. And it's really the IT teams that are enabling that business continuity. And SASE is one of the key ways that they're doing that, Max.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a conversation I've been having a lot over the past 6 months, that digital transformation, how this plays into the continuity plan, and really how businesses have changed completely overall. And when it comes to cloud adoption and the security that goes with that, and how people bring networks into their home, but keeping them as secure as they would in an office environment, has been such a large discussion point, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And you're 100% right of how SASE can be such a benefit to this. And you've given some great examples there, but could you break down a little bit further some more benefits of this kind of SASE-driven approach for businesses who are looking to kind of implement this method?
Absolutely. Well, Max, as you described sort of this environment that exists now in maintaining business continuity, as we said, many employees and contractors are now working from the home, and the home is probably one of the least secure environments. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's an IT team's nightmare, to have to protect now, resources, corporate resources, and organization resources that are maybe being consumed or used out of the home. And SASE really enables businesses to activate this idea of networking and network security, both on premises or in the cloud, or as a combination of both. So you can think about it as I can deliver all these SASE services in a branch office, in a regional location, maybe a distribution center, or even in the home if I wanted to, as more of an on-premises model. Or I can actually deliver these via the cloud and source them via the cloud, or I can do a blended combination of both. And so nearly every enterprise has some varying requirements, where these services are delivered, which are dependent on things such as the size of the location, the size of the branch, the size of the home office, the type of services that are being delivered in those locations, the location of that branch or the home. Where am I working out of right now? Even things like space and wattage and performance within the branch, or maybe even within the home. Security posture requirements, regulatory compliance needs, and even cost constraints for these different locations. And I bring this up because one of the major benefits of a SASE driven approach is this idea that it's almost like, Max, it's like a sliding scale. I can say, for this type of location, I want to have a very heavy cloud implementation of my networking and my network security and other services. But maybe for another location, I want to have a very heavy branch model where I want to have many more services delivered in the branch. And so I think of maybe a bank where it's I think of a power branch with a bank where they have mortgage services, financial banking, personal banking. They have maybe even high net worth wealth management services, all these type of services. And you walk in, and a lot of the networking and security that they want to deliver, maybe 80% of it is on premises, and maybe 10 to 20% is via the cloud. Versus if I slide down to maybe a cafe, a banking cafe type model, maybe it's a little bit of a medium-sized branch where, who knows, maybe 50 to 60, 70% of the services are delivered via the cloud, and another 20, 30, 40% of the services are delivered on premises. I bring this up because this is one of the major benefits of a SASE-driven approach, is that there now businesses and organizations have the flexibility to not just have everything on site and not just have everything in the cloud. They can do a blended mix of those, or based on the size of the branch. And so this is, I think a large benefit there. Another benefit is really this idea that following the user and their identity and really aligning with the application and security policies of the business. This is really important because when I look at a branch of one, which Max might be you and might be me, where we walk around with our devices, our smart devices, I want to be able to have, IT wants me to have all the same security and networking policy and services all the way down to that device. But a lot of that is being delivered via the cloud, which is a very SASE-oriented model. And it follows me. It follows me, my identity, who I am. It follows me as far as the applications I should have access to. It follows me even for securing those applications and preventing malware, in addition to even maybe blocking me from applications that I shouldn't have access to, whether those applications are on premises or in the cloud. And so SASE gives one really that benefit also around giving IT complete control. So in the past, Max, as things shifted to the cloud, IT began to lose control of what was happening with these applications and users and security. Now they're able to regain control with SASE, regardless of who the user is, where the user is located, and even if they're in their home, Max.
Mm-hmm. And obviously fantastic benefits that you're kind of outlining there. And there was something you brought up which is interesting about how these kind of branches come together, and obviously the size of the operation that organizations are bringing in. And I think that leads to an interesting question of asking, really, how can companies assess whether their architecture is SASE ready or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are three different ways to look at that. As we said, SASE is available on premises, via the cloud, or a combination, of those. And you want to be able to look at really an architecture that enables consistent policies across all of that. So whether you're deploying SASE in the cloud or SASE on premises, or a combination of those two, you want to be absolutely certain that I've got my security, my networking, my business, my application, my user policies, and even analytic policies are consistent regardless of where they're being deployed. So one thing you really don't want to do is, as an IT team, is I've spent years developing all these different policies, which I know meet the regulatory, security, and business requirements that I have. I don't want to have to throw all that away. So when I look at an architecture and being SaaS ready, I want to have an architecture that allows me to seamlessly incorporate cloud SaaS services and on-premises SaaS services without having to redo all of my policies. And so I think that's a key piece. So step one would be to ensure you're able to really enable SaaS capabilities in the cloud, on premises, with this ubiquitous policy across both, and one that leverages ideally the policies you've already delivered and developed. And so the second area I would say, in terms of assessing whether your architecture is ready for SASE, is really to look at whether or not, when I'm looking at evaluating SASE, for example, I want to look at how are all these services integrated, and the types of services that are found in a typical SASE implementation are things like zero trust network access, secure web gateway would be another service, cloud access security broker, or CASB as it's called, would be another one. Firewall as a service, WAF is another one. Remote browser isolation, or RBI. This is a newer term that not everybody may have heard of. VDI, virtual desktop integration, sanitized DNS, sandboxes, VPN, and of course SD-WAN, which is a foundational component of this. When I look at all those services, I want to be sure that the architecture actually is able to integrate all of those together. So an important thing for planning for SASE is being very selective about where you begin, with this, and what you start with, and making sure that what you start with is actually able to fully integrate into ideally one single software stack, all these different services, cloud native model, software based, hardware neutral, really ideally built on some sort of a single pass parallel processing architecture, for example. And as you look at the architecture, you want to be sure that what you're putting in place initially isn't going to require you to do things like service chaining or running multiple software stacks in the future, or multiple VNFs or multiple virtual machines, or even worse, separate boxes. And then I think another big piece in terms of that second point is also, what does the distributed system of gateways that are going to deliver the SASE service in the cloud look like? What does that, is that a globally distributed system, or is it just a few, or do you have to manage it yourself? So that's a second piece in terms of planning and making sure that your architecture is SASE ready. And then the third area I would say is, looking at, can I do this myself? So as I look at maybe architectural incremental adjustments that I make, evaluating what I have now and going forward, I want to be sure that what I put in place and what I have in place also allows me to even run my own SASE services. So can I take what's in the cloud and actually run that on my own site? Or can I take what's typically running in the cloud and run it in my own private cloud? And so that's this idea of delivering SASE as a private service and something that I own, as a business or an organization, Max.
Mm-hmm. And I think those are some very key points that organizations should follow. And it leads nicely onto my final question here, because we're talking about the understanding the architecture and making sure that it is SASE ready and people understand it. But obviously that comes with challenges. And I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on how a business can actually implement the changes you've outlined here and replace current outdated architecture, if there is any.
That's a great question, Max. I think there's a couple of pretty quick wins here for organizations and businesses. One approach is really a business or an organization can really take to migrating their architecture. And a popular approach is to begin with secure SD-WAN, which is really the foundation of SASE. And so this is something that can be deployed in branch locations. It can be deployed even in the home. And this really enables the ability to provide on-premises networking and security, and really, if done right, can actually begin to even enable on-premises SASE services, depending on the implementation that one deploys. And it also delivers the on-ramp to the SASE cloud and SASE cloud services. So this is kind of a key element. And one what I would definitely consider is start with secure SD-WAN. If you deploy that, and if you are working with the right architecture and solution, you're going to be able to migrate to a SASE model actually very quickly. A second option is a little bit different, Max, which is to start with something like a secure access solution. Some of these are zero trust network access is a common one, but not just zero trust network access, but ZTNA that really converges SD-WAN services and networking and segmentation and application visibility into that. And one can do that for remote workers, employees and contractors. And that gives almost immediate opportunity for on-ramp into SASE services that are delivered via the cloud. And what this means is that it leverages the cloud to provide security all the way down to clients, the employees and the contractors' clients, what they're running for devices, whether it's a BYOD smart device or laptop or tablet, along with providing performance for applications. Maybe Zoom is an important application I want high performance for, and really having the insertion point for SASE. So I begin there and I start to roll this out to my employees. That immediately gives me an on-ramp into the cloud for SASE. So that's a second approach. But either approach, Max, really provides a seamless starting point for the implementation of SASE, both on-premises and via the cloud.
Excellent stuff. And I think it's such an exciting space to be in with SASE and the options that it can bring, and all the conversations we're having this year about digital transformation and where we're heading in that future. If a company is not looking at the SASE model as something to help them, then I'm hoping this conversation has started to steer them in that direction. But Mike, thank you very much for coming on, giving us your insight into this topic, and really enjoyed having you on today's episode.
Thank you for the opportunity, Max.
You're very welcome. And thank you everyone who took the time to listen to this. We hope you did take a lot away. For more information, please head on over to versa-networks.com. There's a lot of great resources and information there. We'll be back next week with another episode in our Ask the Expert series. Please join the conversation at EM360 on Twitter and LinkedIn. But of course, for more great daily content, please head on over to em360tech.com.